오빤 강남스타일 강남스타일 아름다워 사랑스러워 그래 너 그래 바로 너 아름다워 사랑스러워 그래 너 그래 바로 너 지금부터 날 때까지 가볼까 오빤 강남스타일 강남스타일 오빤 강남스타일 Hey, sexy lady 오빤 강남스타일
We just saw approximately 100 college students come together to dance around and make fools of themselves. What possible reason could they have to do this? We have an answer for you. Social proof. But what is social proof? Let's listen in as the experts answer this question.
Social proof is the idea that we don't really know what's the right behavior in many circumstances, and what we do is we look for others as a guide for what's the right behavior. So it's basically it's a combination of our lack of knowledge of what to do and looking at the majority as if everybody else knows what to do.
The idea that especially when people are uncertain, they're going to look to other people to decide how to behave. And that's the principle of social proof, that people look to others to guide their own behavior, especially when they're uncertain of how to behave.
Okay, that sounds simple enough, right? But let's hear some stories of surprising and unexpected ways that social proof works in our everyday lives.
So today I started teaching a big class, about 300 or 250 people, and I started the class by reading some nonsense gibberish. There's a website that creates random text, and from time to time I replace some words with Adam Smith or neoclassical economics and stuff like that. And I had Foucault, I quoted Foucault as well. And I read this thing to the students. I said, before we start the class, this was the first class, I said, before we start the class, let me give you a formal definition of behavioral economics. And I went into like 5 minutes of reading this nonsense, meaningless text. And what happened was that nobody said anything. And then I said, how come nobody says anything? And my point was to talk about what's called pluralistic ignorance. And pluralistic ignorance is the idea that if you see lots of other people doing nothing, you're going to do nothing as well. So the kind of a standard experiment for this is you put one person in a room and you pipe smoke through the vents. If you're in a room by yourself, smoke coming in, you would come and leave. What happened if there are 400 people in the room? Now you look at everybody else. You see what everybody else is doing. Nobody's doing anything, therefore it must be the right behavior, and you stay. And the reason I started the class like this is that in big classes there's always the problem of people not asking questions. You think the professor is saying something unclear or you don't know what to do, but you look at everybody else and say, I don't understand, but everybody else seems to be nodding. I'm probably the only idiot. But in fact, everybody looks at other people as a rule for what to do and create lots of negative effects.
So Tony Little is a fitness guru who has sold dozens of exercise contraptions, doohickeys, and gizmos that you may have seen on late-night infomercials and other television commercials. Now, Tony Little has been wildly successful selling all of these different contraptions using the standard infomercial lines that we're all quite familiar with. But after hiring an infomercial consultant named Colleen Zott, sales of his latest contraption skyrocketed. Now, what's particularly remarkable about this huge increase in sales is that it's been largely attributed to a seemingly small change that Colleen Zott made to an infomercial line that we're all quite familiar with. And that line is, operators are standing by, please call now. Now, we've all heard this line a million times, but Colleen Zott realized that there was a potentially missed opportunity for persuasion. So she changed the line from operators are standing by, please call now, to if operators are busy, please call again. If operators are busy, please call again. Now, if you think about it from a business standpoint, this seems suicidal. After all, it's hard enough to get this guy interested in exercising in the first place. But now you're seemingly conveying to him by saying if operators are busy, please call again, that if he bothers to take his finger out of his mouth and uses it to dial the number he sees on the screen, he's going to encounter a busy signal. But there's a certain genius to this change that Colleen Zott made. think about the type of mental imagery that comes to mind with these two different lines. Operators are standing by. What do you imagine in your mind? You imagine a couple of bored-looking sales representatives maybe twiddling their thumbs or maybe dozing off or doing the crossword puzzle, which is clearly indicative of low sales and poor demand. On the other hand, if operators are busy, please call again, that's a very different mental image that comes to mind. You can imagine scores of people answering the phones, which is clearly indicative of popularity, right? High sales and large demand.
You've heard all about the power of social proof. Now it's time to see what you can do with what you've learned.
That was terrifying. I did not think it was humorous at all. Sorry.
I think humorous is not the word I would describe. I definitely thought it was
Effective.
he made the point that it was effective. Humorous would be my description.
Well, I have to let you all in on a little secret. So what we actually did was we sent you, Professor Ariely, a clip of the film with a laugh track added, and we also did the same thing for half of the class. And you, Professor Davidson, received the original clip, and the other half of the class received the original clip as well. So we wanted to see how this interaction or this added laugh track would actually play into the perception of the students. And we had some interesting findings, actually. So I went back and looked at all of the responses regarding Pulp Fiction, and all of the students who received the clip with the laugh track added actually said it was humorous, except for 2 students who just didn't comment about it, the humor or not the humor. But all of the students who didn't receive the laugh track added clip, just the original, just remarked on the gruesome nature of it, the morbidity of it, Tarantino's style. And so this conversation about humor was absent from those posts.
So I think it's a great example. It's a great example of something that could be interpreted in multiple ways, as you've shown. And a laugh track is basically creating a social norm, saying, look, the other people who are watching it, this is their common reaction, therefore it's much easier to create that reaction as well. By the way, it's kind of interesting in movie theaters, when you have some people laugh, other people get to start laughing as well. There is something of contagion about it when you say, oh, this is funny. How do you know? Not because you're experiencing anything funny, but because people around you are deciding this is funny and therefore this is becoming acceptable. So that's great.